Happy Shamrock Day. I have a feeling that they're going to start calling it that. I got quite scared when the thought hit me. Oh no, not Shamrock Day. Anyway, I want to talk about St. Patrick today, one little bit about him. This, believe it or not, is a relic of St. Patrick. Isn't that a nice reliquary? So the reliquary is the bit that the wooden bit and the goldy bit, but the relic is actually in there. It's a tiny piece of bone of St. Patrick, probably. Hi, Father Columba here. I hope you have been enjoying the videos, the series. Everything we produce is free to you, but it's not free to make. All those edits when I make so many mistakes and I breathe and sometimes I pause and those have to be edited out. That's not free. So if you have benefited, or if you know people who've benefited, or you think theoretically that someone somewhere maybe has benefited from anything I've ever said on this, if you would consider being a donor, don't know what you call those, benefactor, that's what we call them as Franciscans. If you would be interested in that, you can do that by following the link if you want to do a once-off, or if you'd like to contribute more regularly. You could be a monthly supporter, whatever you can give, big, small, medium, in between small and medium, or preferably between medium and large, whatever. Pray about it, see what you think. You can just follow the description or go to our website, which I like to entitle calledtomer.org, also known as calledtomore.org. There's details there. Bless you. Love you guys. Peace. Let's get back to St. Patrick. He wasn't actually Irish. I love that. I love the fact that the quintessential Irishman was not Irish. He was possibly Englishy Welsh, maybe French, although it's mostly just been French guys who've said that to me. But he definitely loved Ireland a lot, even though he was treated really badly. If a nation of people kidnapped me when I was 16, I'm sure didn't treat me very nicely, and then stuck me out on a hill in Irish weather in the north of Ireland, feeding pigs for years, I'd have issues. I mean, I have issues anyway, but I'd have more, my issues would have issues. Whereas St. Patrick, it was amazing, his response. He was really grateful. His attitude was, you know what, actually I deserved it because I'd really turned from God. Even in his young 16 years, he said, I turned from God. I'd rejected what I'd heard when I was a kid growing up, what priests had taught me about the goodness of God and the need to follow him. So I and all the other folks who went with him were captured. He deserved it, he said. Now we know what he said because he wrote what we call St. Patrick's Confessions, which is kind of like his autobiography. Now it's short. I have an extra short version here, which I really like. And no, you can't have it. Get your own. You can get it online. It's probably not as cool as mine because mine's green. You might be able to, you could print it off maybe. And you could use your crayons and see how that works for you. St. Patrick says loads of things in here. I highly recommend get yourself his Confessions and have a read. It's very, very readable. He's an amazing guy, amazingly humble, as my experience of him, the sense of him reading his Confessions. A really humble guy, and he really loves God. He really, and it just comes through so beautifully and freshly in his writings. Take a wee dander at that one now. Take a wee Luke. But there's one thing in particular in there that really strikes me whenever I read it. Depending on the translation, I actually can't find it in my translation. It's the only downfall. But he talks about before he knew God, or before he had learned to, wait for it, relish God. So he's talking about before he was captured, and then just his early days on that hill in Northern Ireland, feeding pigs. And he says he had not yet learned to relish God. The verb relish is the act of relishing, which means to really relish something is to savor it, to enjoy it, especially something tasty. So you have a nice meal and you go, you really appreciate and enjoy it. And St. Patrick here is saying that almost like it's a super normal thing, almost like a line in the sand, a thing you achieve, and it sort of marks this transition in your life from being kind of know God to like, oh, there's this real significant step that you make when you learn to relish God. The other places in his confessions, he talks about while he was on the mountain, his faith really started to be challenged, probably because he was nothing else, no other option. Either he would despair and get angry at God and angry at everything in life, or he could kind of have this humble attitude, which he seems to have had, of being, wow, like, I need to come back to God. God is the only one who can help me here. So he really did. And he started to try to connect to God. He said at a certain point, he was praying as much as 100 times a day. He said sometimes as many times in the night as well. And that he would get up early, even in snow. He would get up early before the sun and start to pray. Now, I don't know what his prayers were like, when he says 100 prayers. I mean, the rosary wasn't knocking around back then. Maybe he knew, a psalm or two and was saying them, or maybe it was just speaking from his heart. But what he's describing there is what's the first stage of prayer, which is often called vocal prayer. Vocal meaning like vocals in a song. It's words. You're saying things, and often when you're learning to pray, you just will learn a prayer off. For example, Jesus, this is how when he taught his disciples to pray, they asked him and he said, right, here you go. And he gave them like set words. It's called the Our Father or the Lord's Prayer. The idea there was you would learn this off. You could then be able to say it and say it from your heart. And then this leads perfectly onto this kind of next stage that St. Patrick describes of prayer. So you start with the vocal, and then you get into what's called discursive meditation. Discursive meditation, which means you're sort of thinking about God and about the things of God. And to think about it, you're sort of having this little conversation, this process in your head of thinking through or meditating. Now, there's different kind of techniques and ways around that, and lots of different ways to approach it. Sometimes I journal that out. That helps to keep me focused and my thoughts clear. Some people will literally speak it to God, or in their head they're speaking it to God. And some people are just pondering, internally thinking. So that's all somewhat fits in, I think, with some of what St. Patrick touches on. The thing about relishing God, I think that's kind of what's often described as this third development in prayer, which the technical term is affective meditation. Affective meditation. Now, that's not effective. Now, hopefully it's effective, but I didn't say the word effective, which means it does what it's supposed to do, but rather affective, which means meditation or prayer with the affections, with the heart. Now, that means that not just you kind of sense a movement from God, but you're kind of moved. The movement of the heart is the primary aspect of your prayer. And this is where you start to relish God. This is where you start to enjoy. Like, it's pleasurable for you to think about God. It's pleasurable for you to turn your heart to God and say, hey, how are you? Or to praise him. Sometimes just the simplest little line of praising God from the Psalms, for me, it's really pleasurable for me. I could just do it. I could do it for hours sometimes. It's kind of this movement of my heart. It's this movement really of God. It's a gift of God that he is pouring in, this delighting in him as he starts to transform our desires and our thinking and our being. The veil starts to be peeled back, and we start to realize, wow, God actually is the most beautiful, the most enjoyable person that there is, and that connecting with him is the most pleasurable thing on the earth. Yes, I did just say that. And this is just the start of this, guys. St. Teresa of Avila, the great master of prayer, she said that in the early days of prayer, it's a lot of labor. It's work. You got to work at it. That's with the vocal prayer and then the meditation. You have to choose it. You have to set time aside. It's not going to be super enjoyable all the time. The main thing about it is work. So you do the work and God gives the increase. Really practically then, before I leave you, how do you do this? It's always good to have some sort of a fire starter. So like whether it's reading a little bit of scripture with some Lectio, or you have a little book that you like an author. I love Pope Benedict. So when I read his stuff, not his like really dense theological stuff, but just my normal run-of-the-mill stuff. Oh my gosh. I just read one line, and it might be the kind of line that you'd want to underline. Like, oh, okay. When you hit something like, oh, I'd like to get out my pencil and color in crayons and underline that one. That probably means you've been struck in some way. So you've been moved. So stop. Well, you can underline if you like, but don't just underline. Underline with your heart. Stop and just think about what you just read, and start to have a little chat with God, just gently. And notice your heart. Did you enjoy that thought about God? So if you enjoyed it, then there's some enjoyment there. Stop and enjoy. Sometimes we go, oh, that's awesome. We underline and we move on. Unfortunately, God was in that line. He was moving your heart and you kind of missed him. Try not to miss him when something strikes you. Or you could be listening to a talk. I was listening to Archbishop Sheen the other day when I was driving somewhere. And this one little line, and it was a line about hell, guys. I mean, it's not exactly like, oh, this is lovely. But it was just so true. It was just this deep truth that just hit my heart and went, ooh. And I literally wanted to underline it, but I couldn't write it down because that'd be really dangerous. So I pressed stop on the CD. That's right. I listened to CDs. As I drove, I just went, And the truth of it was enjoyable to me. It was pleasurable to me. It was, even though the thought of hell is not like, yay, the fact that it was a truth was so beautiful. It's like, that is reality. And I was just got this joy about this beautiful description of something that is real and true and is part of God's kingdom. It went on for ages. Was it half an hour, an hour? I would just drive. And every now and again I get distracted and forget, but when I come back and think of the thought, think of the word, the joy would come back. And I didn't have to be talking loads to God. I didn't have to be thinking loads and pondering. Literally just enjoy. Just sit there and go, And if you have a little organ, you can, that is a major, major part of prayer. I'm pretty sure I gave a teaching on this one before, but if I did, then too bad. Because this is one of the most important things, I think, in your growth in prayer. And just giving yourself permission. You guys, don't keep saying your rosary if God moves your heart. Our Lady wants you to stop, okay? If you're praying your rosary and your heart gets moved, stop praying. As in, stop saying the words. They're just to light the fire. The fire is lit. Now enjoy the fire of God's presence and his love. All of the saints, this is what they did. St. Francis, when God moved, when he lit the fire in his heart, when there was some movement, some affection was stirred up, he excused himself. If he was with the other brothers, he would put his hood up, he would climb into a ditch, he would escape, and he would be with God, because the king was in his castle. He had just entered the castle, and St. Francis made sure, and he would put God before anybody else. I highly recommend you try to do the same yourself in your prayer. When God shows up, and he does so by giving you enjoyment or a movement of the heart, give him the reverence that is his due. Pay attention to him and enjoy it. And maybe one day you'll become like the man himself, St. Patrick, who is a joy. Because when you enjoy as your primary occupation, you become a joy. We just ask his prayers for us on this beautiful, beautiful day. We pray for Ireland, for her renewal, as this incredible man brought that renewal to the whole nation of Ireland, especially the young people of Ireland will come to know God and come to relish him, and that they might become a joy. Amen. God bless you guys. See you later.